your anxiety, your anger, your fear. They're not the product of your circumstances. That's the greatest lie you've been told. The truth. They're the result of an untrained mind that you've allowed to run wild, governing your life with primitive impulses rather than conscious choice. You don't need better situations. You don't need fewer problems. What you need is the mental discipline to remain sovereign over your responses regardless of what's happening around you. Until you develop this, you remain a slave to every person and circumstance that triggers you. The room falls silent. A child screams in terror as flames engulf their home. The parents frozen, their minds racing, yet their bodies unable to move. One parent remains paralyzed by fear while the other suddenly snaps into action, moving with purpose through the smoke and chaos to rescue their child. What makes the difference between these two responses? Why does one person crumble while another rises in crisis? It's not courage. It's not love. It's not even training. It's the mind. The trained mind. The most powerful force in the universe isn't nuclear energy or gravitational pull. It's the human mind when it has been disciplined to remain calm in the center of chaos. Look at the person sitting next to you. Turn to them. Really look at them. That person has survived every single bad day they've ever had. Every crisis, every heartbreak, every failure. They're still here. That's not just luck. That's the resilience built into our very design. But here's the truth many don't want to hear. Calmness isn't our natural state when facing adversity. Panic is, fear is, confusion is. The untrained mind automatically moves toward chaos when chaos presents itself. You weren't born knowing how to stay calm in life's storms. This is a learned skill. And today we're going to uncover the principles that transform ordinary people into extraordinary forces of stability. But I'm just naturally anxious. Someone might say, my personality isn't built for calmness. Let me challenge that assumption. Your mind is not fixed. It's fluid. It's constantly being shaped by your choices, by your environment, your habits, and most importantly, your training. Have you ever wondered why military special forces can function with clarity and precision in environments that would reduce most of us to panic? Is it because they were born different? No. It's because they've been systematically trained to separate stimulus from response. They've learned to create space between what happens to them and how they choose to react. This space, this gap between event and reaction, is where your power lives. It's where freedom is found. It's where transformation happens. The untrained mind says, this situation is making me anxious. The trained mind says, I notice anxiety arising in response to this situation, and I can choose what happens next. Do you see the difference? One is victimhood. The other is ownership. When was the last time you completely lost your composure? Think about it. Perhaps it was in traffic when someone cut you off. Maybe it was during an argument with someone you love. Or possibly when you received bad news that shook your sense of security. In that moment, did you choose your response? Or did your response choose you? Most people live their entire lives never realizing they have the ability to train their minds to stay calm. They believe their reactions are fixed, that they're simply emotional people or quick-tempered or easily overwhelmed. They surrender their greatest power without even knowing they possessed it. There was once a village that experienced devastating floods every rainy season, year after year. The people would rebuild their homes in the same location, using the same methods, and suffer the same losses. One day, a stranger visited the village and asked a simple question: why don't you build your homes differently or move to higher ground? The villagers looked at him in confusion and replied, because this is how we've always done it. Many of us approach mental and emotional regulation the same way. We keep experiencing the same overwhelming reactions because we've never questioned if there's another way to respond. We've never contemplated that calmness is a skill that can be developed. Not a personality trait some are blessed with and others are not. The ability to remain calm under pressure isn't just a nice quality to have. It's the foundation for every other success in your life. Without it, your relationships suffer. Your work suffers. Your health suffers. And your ability to pursue purpose becomes severely compromised. Think about the most respected person you know. Someone whose presence brings a sense of stability to any room they enter. I guarantee you this, they have mastered the art of mental calmness. Not because they feel less, but because they've trained themselves to channel their feelings productively. Now, I want to be clear about something. Training your mind to stay calm doesn't mean becoming emotionless. It doesn't mean suppressing your feelings or pretending everything is fine when it isn't. That's not calmness, that's denial. And denial always demands payment with interest later. True calmness is feeling everything but not being controlled by those feelings. It's experiencing the full weight of a situation while maintaining your power to choose your next move. It's being fully present without being fully consumed. There was a well-known study where researchers observed how experienced monks and novice meditators responded to unexpected loud sounds while in meditation. The results were fascinating. Both groups heard the sounds and registered them in their brains. But the experienced monks returned to a state of calm much faster than the novices. The difference wasn't that the monks didn't hear the sound or didn't feel startled. They did. The difference was in how quickly they could return to centeredness. They had trained their minds to process disturbance and release it, rather than clinging to it and amplifying it. This is what I want for you. Not that you never feel disturbed, but that you develop the ability to return to calmness with increasing speed and skill. How many opportunities have you missed because your mind was too chaotic to recognize them? How many relationships have suffered because your untrained responses created unnecessary conflict? How many hours, days, or even years have been colored by anxiety that you could have moved through more quickly with the right mental training? The world doesn't reward intelligence alone. It doesn't even reward talent alone. The world responds to those who can remain effective under pressure. Those who can think clearly when clarity is most needed. Those who can access their wisdom, creativity, and resourcefulness when others are losing access to theirs. Let me tell you about two business partners who faced the same crisis. Their company lost its biggest client, representing 40% of their revenue. The first partner immediately spiraled into catastrophic thinking, we're going to go bankrupt. We'll have to lay everyone off. My reputation will be ruined. His mind created a chain reaction of worst case scenarios that paralyzed his ability to respond effectively. The second partner experienced the same initial shock, but had trained her mind differently. She allowed herself to feel the full weight of the situation for a defined period, one day. Then she shifted into solution-focused thinking. What opportunities does this create? Which potential clients can we now pursue? How can we diversify our revenue streams to prevent this vulnerability in the future? Same external circumstance, dramatically different mental responses, and consequently, dramatically different outcomes. The first partner remained stuck in anxiety for weeks, unable to take meaningful action. The second partner led the company through a successful pivot that ultimately resulted in a stronger, more resilient business model. The quality of your life is determined not by what happens to you, but by how your mind processes what happens to you. Some of you are nodding because you know this intellectually. But knowing and embodying are worlds apart. Implementation, consistent, dedicated implementation is where transformation happens. So let me ask you, are you ready to begin the real work of training your mind? Are you prepared to challenge your automatic responses and develop new mental pathways that serve your highest purpose? Are you willing to experience temporary discomfort for long-term liberation? Because that's what we're talking about, liberation. Freedom from reactivity. Freedom from being hijacked by every strong emotion. Freedom to choose your response rather than having it programmed by unconscious patterns. This freedom doesn't come through wishing. It doesn't come through reading books or listening to talks. Though these can point the way, it comes through deliberate practice. Day after day. Situation after situation. Choice after choice. The ancient wisdom traditions have always known what modern neuroscience now confirms: the mind can be trained. New neural pathways can be formed. Default responses can be reprogrammed. But this transformation requires both understanding and application, both insight and action. In the parts that follow, we'll explore specific techniques for training your mind to remain calm in any situation. We'll examine the science behind mental regulation and the wisdom practices that have helped millions develop this essential skill. We'll look at how to apply these principles in your relationships, your work, your personal growth, and your spiritual development. But before we go further, I want you to make a commitment, not to me, but to yourself. Commit to being an active participant in this process. Commit to applying what you learn. Not just consuming it. Commit to the daily practice of mental training. Even when it's difficult. Even when you don't see immediate results. Because here's the truth, this work is simple. But it isn't easy. If it were easy, everyone have mastered it already. The path to mental calmness requires consistency, patience, and courage. It asks you to face your triggers rather than avoid them. It demands that you develop awareness of your patterns before you can transform them. Are you willing to do this work? Are you ready to develop a mind that remains calm not despite life's challenges, but because of how you've learned to engage with them? In the silence of this moment, make that commitment to yourself. Choose to become the center of calmness in whatever storm you're facing. Decide that from this day forward. You will be the one who brings clarity when others bring chaos. Because a mind trained for calmness isn't just a personal asset, it's a gift to everyone around you. In a world of reactivity, your centeredness becomes a sanctuary for others. Your clarity becomes a lighthouse for those lost in emotional fog. Have you ever watched a skilled surfer navigate enormous waves that would terrify most people, while amateurs panic and fight against the water's power? Masters work with it. They understand something fundamental. You cannot control the ocean, but you can control how you move within it. Your emotions are like these waves. They will come. They will rise. They will create turbulence. This is the nature of being human. The question isn't whether you'll experience emotional waves. The question is whether you've learned to surf them. Most people spend their lives being thrown around by every emotional surge. They're at the mercy of their feelings, believing they have no choice but to be carried wherever the current leads. But this is a fundamental misunderstanding of our design. You were created with the capacity to experience emotion without being enslaved by it. You were given discernment to distinguish between what you feel and what you do with those feelings. This distinction is where your freedom begins. Let me share with you 3 core principles that form the foundation of a trained mind. Write these down. Meditate on them. Apply them. They will transform your relationship with every challenge you face. The first principle is this: recognize that feelings are information, not commands. When anxiety rises within you, it's providing information, perhaps about a potential threat, a value being challenged, or an unmet need. But anxiety is not issuing commands that you must obey. The untrained mind hears anxiety and immediately follows its directives: avoid, escape, protect, attack. The trained mind receives the information without automatically following these commands. When you feel angry, your body is informing you that a boundary may have been crossed or an injustice may have occurred. This is valuable information. But anger is not commanding you to lash out, seek revenge, or act impulsively. Those are responses you can choose or reject based on your higher wisdom. Every emotion carries intelligence, even the uncomfortable ones. But none of them should be given decision-making authority over your life. They are advisors, not rulers, consultants, not kings. Practice asking, what is this feeling telling me that might be useful? And what is it suggesting that I might be wise to question? The second principle builds upon the first. Develop the practice of observational distance. This means learning to step back from your thoughts and feelings to observe them rather than being completely identified with them. It's the difference between saying, I am angry and I notice anger arising in me. Do you see how the second statement creates space? How it positions you as the observer of the emotion rather than the emotion itself. This subtle shift in language reflects a profound shift in consciousness. When you're fully identified with an emotion, you have no perspective, no options, no freedom. When you can observe it with even a small degree of distance, new possibilities emerge. Try this right now. Close your eyes for a moment and notice what you're feeling. Don't try to change it. Don't judge it. Just observe it with curiosity. Where do you feel it in your body? What quality does it have? Is it moving or still? Heavy or light? This simple practice of bringing awareness to your emotional state without being consumed by it is the beginning of mental freedom. With regular practice, you'll develop the ability to maintain this observational stance even in challenging situations. The third principle is perhaps the most powerful. Understand that the mind follows focus. Whatever you consistently focus on expands in your awareness. This is not positive thinking or wishful thinking. It's a fundamental law of consciousness where attention goes, energy flows. The untrained mind focuses reflexively on threats, problems, and worst case scenarios. This is actually by design. Our survival once depended on quickly identifying dangers. But in modern life, this tendency often creates unnecessary suffering and limits our response to challenges. The trained mind can direct focus intentionally. It can acknowledge problems without becoming fixated on them. It can recognize threats without magnifying them. It can see difficulties while simultaneously seeking opportunities when facing a crisis. Ask yourself, where is my focus right now? Is it on what could go wrong? Or on what I can do right? Is it on what's beyond my control? Or what's within my influence? Is it on the problem? Or on potential solutions? Your answer will reveal a great deal about why you feel the way you do in that moment. I once met someone who had lost everything in a natural disaster, their home, his possessions, even treasured family photographs. When I asked how they were coping, they said something I'll never forget. I'm focusing on what remains, not what was lost. This wasn't denial. They acknowledged their grief and pain. But they were intentionally directing their mental focus toward what could be built rather than only what had been destroyed. Their circumstances hadn't changed, but their relationship to those circumstances was transformed by this choice of focus. These three principles: understanding emotions as information, not commands; developing observational distance; and directing your focus intentionally, form the foundation of a mind trained for calmness. They are simple to understand but require consistent practice to embody. Now, let's address a critical question. What happens in the body when we experience emotional turbulence? Your physical body doesn't distinguish between different types of threats. Whether you're facing a dangerous animal, a difficult conversation, or financial stress, your nervous system activates the same fundamental response: increased heart rate, shallow breathing, muscle tension, digestive changes, hormonal shifts. This is why mental calmness isn't just a psychological state, it's a physiological one. To train your mind for calmness, you must also train your body. The two are inseparably connected. The most direct pathway to physiological calm is through the breath. Your breathing pattern has an immediate effect on your nervous system. Rapid, shallow breathing reinforces states of anxiety and reactivity. Slow, deep breathing activates the parasympathetic response, the body's natural calming system. In moments of emotional intensity, your first step should always be to change your breathing. Inhale slowly through your nose for a count of 4. Hold briefly. Exhale slowly through your mouth for a count of 6. Repeat this pattern several times. This isn't just a distraction technique. It's a direct intervention in your physiological state. By changing how you breathe, you send a powerful signal to your brain that you are safe, that you have time, that you can respond rather than merely react. With consistent practice, this response can become automatic, a conditioned reflex that activates the moment you feel emotional turbulence arising. This is what training is, turning conscious choices into unconscious competence. Remember, developing a calm mind isn't about never feeling disturbed. It's about reducing the gap between disturbance and return to center. It's about building the neural pathways that allow you to recover equilibrium with increasing speed and skill. Your environment shapes your mind more than you realize. Look around at the spaces where you spend most of your time. Listen to the voices that fill your ears daily. Notice the information you consistently consume. All of this is programming your mental responses. The calm mind isn't created in isolation. It's cultivated within a carefully designed ecosystem that supports mental clarity and emotional balance. Many struggle to develop calmness because they are attempting to build an internal sanctuary while surrounding themselves with chaos. It's like trying to keep a room clean while inviting people to throw mud on the floor. Assess your environment honestly. Does it reinforce reactivity or calmness? Does it prioritize urgency over importance? Does it reward thoughtful responses or impulsive reactions? Your social environment is particularly powerful. The people closest to you establish norms for how emotions are expressed and processed. If you're surrounded by individuals who react dramatically to every challenge, you'll likely adopt similar patterns. If you're in community with those who respond thoughtfully even to difficult situations, their example will elevate your own responses. Choose your influences wisely. This isn't about abandoning those who struggle. It's about ensuring you have models of the mental state you're working to develop. Find mentors, whether in person or through books, talks, or other media who demonstrate the capacity to remain centered in adversity. Remember that your mind naturally mirrors what it's regularly exposed to. This is neither good nor bad. is simply how we're designed. Use this tendency strategically by curating what you allow into your mental space. Now, let's address one of the greatest enemies of the calm mind, anticipatory anxiety. This is the tendency to play out worst case scenarios about situations that haven't even occurred. It's living tomorrow's problems with today's resources. The untrained mind spends enormous energy fighting imaginary battles. It exhausts itself preparing for catastrophes that never arrive. By the time the actual situation presents itself, the mental and emotional resources are already depleted. The trained mind stays rooted in the present moment. It acknowledges future possibilities without becoming entangled in elaborate stories about them. It distinguishes between preparation and worry, the former being productive and the latter destructive. When you notice your mind spinning scenarios about future events, gently bring it back to the present by focusing on something concrete and immediate. What can you see right now? What can you hear? What sensations do you notice in your body? These simple questions anchor you in reality rather than possibility. Anticipatory anxiety dissolves when you fully occupy the present moment. From this centered state, you can then consider future scenarios with clarity rather than fear, with preparation rather than panic. Another crucial aspect of training your mind for calmness is developing a healthy relationship with uncertainty. The untrained mind demands certainty before it will relax. It believes peace is only possible when all questions are answered and all outcomes secured. This is a formula for perpetual anxiety because life, by its very nature, contains substantial uncertainty. No amount of planning, controlling, or worrying can eliminate this fundamental truth of human existence. The trained mind makes peace with not knowing. It distinguishes between what must be controlled and what must be accepted. It recognizes that certainty is not a prerequisite for calmness, that it's possible to be at peace without having all the answers. This doesn't mean abandoning responsibility or living passively. It means engaging fully with what's within your influence while releasing the burden of what isn't. It means taking wise action without attaching your sense of security to specific outcomes. Practice asking, what's the next right step I can take from a place of centeredness, even without complete certainty about the future. This approach builds confidence in your ability to respond to whatever arises, rather than placing confidence only in your ability to predict and control. The quality of your questions determines the quality of your life when facing adversity. Most people automatically ask disempowering questions. Why is this happening to me? Who's to blame? How can I escape this situation? These questions focus your mind on victimhood, fault finding, and avoidance, none of which create the mental conditions for calmness and effective response. The trained mind asks different questions. What can I learn here? How can I use this situation? What opportunity might exist within this challenge? These questions redirect your mental energy toward growth, resourcefulness, and possibility. They transform problems from something happening to you into something happening for you. Practice consciously choosing your questions, especially in difficult moments. The right question can completely reframe your relationship with adversity and open pathways to solutions you might otherwise miss. Consider two individuals facing the same professional setback, a lost promotion. The first repeatedly asks, why don't they value me? This question reinforces feelings of rejection and narrows focus to what went wrong. The second asks, how can I use this experience to become even more valuable? This question acknowledges disappointment while creating momentum toward improvement. Same circumstance, different questions, dramatically different mental and emotional trajectories. Another essential practice for training your mind is regularly experiencing states of flow. Flow occurs when you're so completely absorbed in an activity that time seems to alter. Self-consciousness disappears. And you access a natural state of calm alertness. For some, flow comes through creative expression. Or for others, through physical activity. For still others, through deep intellectual engagement or spiritual practice. The particular activity matters less than its ability to fully capture your attention and create a sense of being fully present. Flow states remind your nervous system what it feels like to be simultaneously energized and calm. They strengthen neural pathways associated with focused attention and reduced reactivity. They provide regular relief from the mental chatter that fuels anxiety and overwhelm. Make time for flow-inducing activities, especially when life is demanding. These experiences aren't luxuries, they're essential training for your mind. They build capacity for sustained attention and emotional regulation that transfers to challenging situations. Next, understand that mental calmness requires proper maintenance of your physical vessel. Your brain's ability to regulate emotion is directly influenced by sleep quality, nutrition, hydration, and movement. When these foundational needs are neglected, the most advanced psychological techniques become far less effective. The mind's capacity for emotional regulation diminishes significantly with even modest sleep deprivation. Your ability to maintain perspective, remain flexible, and access higher reasoning all depend on adequate rest. Similarly, your brain requires proper nutrition, regular physical activity, and sufficient hydration to function optimally during stress. These basic physiological needs aren't separate from spiritual and psychological development. They're prerequisites for it. Honor the profound connection between body and mind by treating your physical care as an essential aspect of mental training. Finally, recognize that comparison is the thief of calmness. When you measure your progress, your possessions, or your problems against others, you create unnecessary suffering. The trained mind focuses on its own journey, celebrating growth without requiring it to match someone else's timeline or expression. Your path to developing mental calmness is uniquely yours. It will unfold at its own pace, with its own challenges and its own breakthroughs. Trust this process. Honor your progress, however incremental it may seem. Each small victory builds momentum toward the transformation you seek. The ultimate secret to training your mind for calmness lies in understanding your true identity. When you know who you really are beyond your thoughts, beyond your emotions, beyond your circumstances, you discover an unshakable foundation that remains steady through every storm. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that observes thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are the consciousness that experiences emotions. You are not your successes or failures. You are the essence that transcends both. This isn't abstract philosophy. It's practical psychology. When you identify completely with temporary states, whether pleasant or painful, you become as changeable as those states. When you recognize your deeper nature, you access stability regardless of external conditions. The trained mind remembers this truth even when everything else is forgotten. It returns to this knowing when all other anchors have been uprooted. It rests in this reality when circumstances offer no comfort. Begin and end each day by reminding yourself who you truly are. Practice witnessing your experiences rather than being defined by them. Notice the part of you that remains unchanged despite life's constant fluctuations. This journey of training your mind isn't about reaching a final destination. It's about moving ever closer to your authentic nature, calm, clear, compassionate, and capable. It's about reducing the gap between who you appear to be in your most reactive moments and who you truly are in your essence. The world needs people with trained minds now more than ever in a culture of reactivity. Your calmness becomes revolution in an environment of noise. Your clarity becomes revelation in a landscape of division. Your centeredness becomes reconciliation. Choose today to be that person. Commit to the daily practices that develop mental calmness. Embrace the challenges that strengthen this capacity. And remember always that the peace you cultivate within yourself becomes your greatest gift to everyone you encounter. This is your purpose. This is your power. This is your path.